All right, so this should be the last video or lesson with the 2D, 3D design. This is where we're going to add color to our final piece. And so hopefully by now you've watched all the previous videos. So you've completed your thumbnails of your flat shapes, the thumbnails of the 3D forms. Then I asked you to do 2 together of the 2D and 3D. And then now I'm asking you to create on another piece in your sketchbook a final one of the 2D and 3D together, so a whole new one. You can make one of your smaller thumbnails bigger that you just previously did of those 2, or you can make a whole new one, or you can take ideas from everything else that you've drawn and putting it all together of the 2D and 3D together. Hopefully by now you've watched the links that I sent you about Keith Haring, Basquiat, and Kandinsky. It's part of the assignment, so hopefully you've watched those. And hopefully you've been inspired by those amazing artists. And you can pull ideas from those artists and their work, or other artists that you've seen and or maybe watching. So hopefully you've watched those about those 3 artists because they pertain to this assignment. All right, so now I've already gone ahead with my pencil and drawn a new design of 2D and 3D. So if you do not have any color materials at your house, that's fine. Then just do this in pencil and then you're done, okay? If you do have materials to add color, I would really love it if you would. This is another example from last year that I started, never have finished it. I just have to kind of finish putting in color in the background, but look at how cool it can be once you've added color. Again, if you don't have any of these materials that I'm going to use, that's okay. It can just be done in pencil. All right, so what I've already kind of started is I'm using a black pen, or if you have a Sharpie or another black marker of some sort, use one of those. I'll use both. So I've already kind of started going over some of my pencil lines. Obviously, if I have lines that are really straight, I need to come back in with my straight edge and use that to keep them nice and straight and clean. And again, I'm using a piece of folded paper to show you that you do not need a ruler for this. A folded piece of paper is all you need. So I'm going to use my black pen. And so as I'm going over my pencil lines, I do have to be careful. So because now I'm kind of finalizing these lines and I don't want to mess them up. Let me switch up. I have a Sharpie. I have like a 2-pointed Sharpie. So if you have one of those, you could use those. With this, my lines are thicker. And that's okay too. So maybe this is all you have at home. Well, then you can use this. As I'm kind of going over these lines, I'm also going to kind of make a choice to kind of thicken some of them, because now this black color is now kind of part of this design and composition. All right, I'm going to just keep tracing over my pencil lines. I have another tip on here, so maybe I'll do that. So again, I'm just showing you different options that you can use. If all you have is a lead or a black pen, then that's all you can use. If you have a Sharpie, then use a Sharpie. I'm not taking as much time as I should because I'm trying to make this a quick little video. So maybe now I want to make that thicker, and then I color it in a little bit so that's kind of like I'm adding a color. And remember when you were watching those videos of Basquiat or Herring and Kandinsky, there were a lot of places in their pieces of work that had thick, bold lines, and a lot of those lines were black or really any color. So that's why we're kind of first outlining this all in black to make these shapes really defined and clean looking. I'm kind of not shading it in as clean as I should be. If when you do this, definitely take your time and make this stuff nice and clean and bold. Oh, I have one more thing down here. My kind of funky shape that I like to add. I made it thick, and then I made that. All right, so now I've outlined everything, and I can see it really well. So now let's talk about different things that you can use to color this in. If you have markers at home, then use markers. Let me see if my markers even work. You know, we want this to be really bold and colorful. Maybe I don't want my whole pyramid blue. You know, I'm just gonna kind of keep sprinkling this around my piece. You want this to be colorful, bright. When you're choosing your colors, you know, maybe you use every color under the rainbow, that's fine. Or maybe you just choose a couple of your favorite colors, or maybe you choose warm colors like reds and oranges and yellows. It's really up to you. Okay, so another option you can use is going to be colored pencils, or if you have colored pencils, then use your colored pencils. And again, as you're coloring in, you want to really take your time and keep your strokes really close together. I'm trying to speed this up so you don't get super bored. As you're adding your color, you know, think about patterns even, the patterns of colors. So you can use colored pencil to fill all these in. And by this time, you kind of want to have fun with this. You want to make this bright and colorful. Another option you can use if you have are crayons or oil pastels. I don't have any crayons in my classroom, so I'm going to be using oil pastels. They're also kind of like crayons. They're just really waxy. So if you have these, use these. These are a great option too. They're really bright and vivid. When you're doing this, I want you to fill up this whole thing with all these really pretty bright colors. So see how it was important that we outlined our pencil with the black marker or the black pen because when you do that, then these colors pop off the page more. This is a really big shape, so it's gonna take a while to get all this colored in. And I kind of like am creating this family of colors almost. Didn't really mean to do that, but it's kind of happening. So that means that I'm using like the same colors throughout. Which you don't have to do. You can make this as colorful as you want. So right now I'm using oil pastels. Another similar option would be crayon, but I don't have those. I've moved back to colored pencil. I'm just kind of changing different mediums just so you can see a variety of what happens. All right, another option you can use would be watercolor. So I have this basic watercolor palette that's like, I think it's Crayola that I got from Target. And then when you use watercolor, you would need a cup of water and some paintbrushes. So if you have this, then you can use watercolor. So with watercolor, if you've never used it before, you want to get your brushes wet, and then you dip it into the color to wetten the paint. And then you simply paint where you want it to go. The more water you use, the lighter the color will be. The less paint you use, the more darker the color will be. Watercolor is nice because it can kind of fill a large space quickly. So that's why I kind of waited to use watercolor for when I knew I had a lot of bigger spaces left, like my background area. You can use it for tiny places, obviously, too. If you don't have watercolor, that's okay. Again, just keep using either markers or crayons or colored pencils to fill in your whole piece. And then before you add more color on it, you usually have to leave it to dry. And you also probably want to have a paper towel or something handy to dry your brushes. I have one over here. Let's put blue. Why not? So once you start adding the watercolor to your sketchbook page, it may become, it's going to be wet, so it may kind of ripple your paper a little bit. So just you don't want to go super crazy with the water. Maybe practice your watercolor on another page if you've never used it before. So now I have left these two big places. So again, I can use watercolor because that's what I have, or marker or colored pencil. I'll go ahead and use colored pencil because most of you might not even have watercolor. So you definitely take your time, but I'm trying to kind of fill this large space nicely. And make it nice and clean marks. You don't want to make it really messy. So I'm trying to kind of make this nice, solid. Alrighty, so I went ahead and paused it to color in my larger shapes because you don't really need to see all that. So here it is, it's done. You can see I have shapes, I have forms, I have things that are overlapping, things that are touching the edges, and I have things that are different sizes. And now I've added color. So that would now be my final piece is done. Again, if you don't have anything at your home to add color, then pencil is fine. If you do have colorful items, please add them. See how it makes it pop. It defines things, and then it kind of reinforces those three artists that we watched and talked about with Keith Haring, Basquiat, and Kandinsky. So that concludes our 2D, 3D design.